If there's one thing I know, marketers do love to mingle, and one of the places that they tend to accumulate is the Festival of Marketing, normally held in London at about this time of year. Of course, with COVID, it's a virtual event. So, what's it going to look like? What are the pitfalls and what are the opportunities? Well, Steve Newbold is the Group Managing Director of the organisers of the event. Steve, it is very, very different, but what are you trying to do to make the best of it?
We decided back in May that we were going to have to go virtual. It's been a bit of a learning curve. There was no set alternative as to how you would actually make this work. But I think to our advantage is that we're a content-led event. It's harder, I think, for exhibitions actually in many respects. But if you're content-led, it just meant we had to think hard about, well, how do we take that virtual? What can we do? What's the right sort of platform to put it on? And then more importantly, what's the experience which is going to work for the recipient, for the marketer who's tuning in or paying for a delegate pass? So the big difference is, I think, this year is we normally have 300 speakers over 2 days. So it's quite a hive of activity. We've spread this out over a week. So we're running this over 5 days. We've edited it down to 80 sessions, just to make that easier to digest so that people don't get too fatigued. But we're pretty well prepared for it, and we've had to learn fast as to how to put on a virtual event.
I wanted to pick up on some of the points that you mentioned there. Obviously, it's virtual. You do talk about it being more of a learning content-led approach. Has that made it easier to put on this event compared to, like you say, an exhibition or an event that kind of celebrates creativity?
Yeah, no, I think it does. And we were quite well advanced, as you could imagine, when you're researching the right topics to actually run at an event anyway. That starts a year in advance almost, and then you refine it as you get nearer to the event. So even by May, we'd already signed up some pretty significant headline speakers. We've got the right sort of sessions organised. And of course, everyone's in the same boat, probably a bit like you and I, parked at home. One of the unforeseen benefits actually is just how easy it is to actually get hold of, senior people, high quality people, and to get them interested in actually participating. It forced a bit of a rethink as to, well, what's the topic of conversation actually going to be, and how do you actually frame that over 5 days?
And hopefully not too COVID focused.
No, we wanted to keep the strategic leadership focus, because this is all about sort of leadership in the industry and speaking with senior leaders. So of course, there is going to be part of it is talking about, well, look, what's happening out there, what are the trends, what are we seeing, what's changed. But the most important thing for me is, well, what are people actually doing? So what have they learned? What are they learning from their consumers? What's actually changed? How have they changed? How have they gone about doing it? And in a whole chunk really on, well, what's the future? So, what does the future look like, and what do brands, and marketers need to be doing differently to succeed going forwards?
You have put this behind a paywall where a lot of other organisations are actually taking them down. Is that a bit of a gamble?
I think we realised quite early that, we shouldn't underestimate that the value that we can offer out here is as good, if not better, than what we would do over 2 days. So the challenge was getting people's heads around the fact actually as to what are they actually paying for. So I think the differentiation will be, the quality we've gone with. We realised again that it's about the speakers, it's about the quality of speaker and the content. And in a close second to that is the production value in the way that you actually film them and record them, rather than going over the top with some sort of fancy platform. It was trying to recreate to a high quality what you'd expect to see on a stage at the event. And we felt, look, it should be paid for. These things aren't cheap to put on, even on a digital format. But the value, is as high as ever.
Are you thinking that by raising the quality of the production and the guests, that's going to avoid this sort of horrific webinar fatigue?
It is literally as live. You've got great panel discussions and sessions which are happening up there, people pitching themselves in the same sort of way, but a small army of AV experts actually editing and producing and actually putting it into the platform. And then we'll mix in with that some live content, obviously through the week. So some of that will be, as you'd expect, would be through the platform, but it would be more similar to this type of conversation or Zoom. And then we've got some remote filming as well, which we've also done to quite a high standard. So particularly with, our international speakers, we've made sure we've got, proper camera crew going around there and filming them, properly. And that can be edited into the platform. So it's not cheap to do. It's a different way of going. And it has to be more organized, I think, than just sticking a webinar out there, that's for sure.
Just to pick up on what the content's going to look like, you've talked about high-level guests, you've talked about a variety of content. What do you think the highlights are going to be? And what are you learning in these discussions about where marketers are looking next?
The thing which has just struck me both within our own business, but obviously in the industry, is just how fast people have been actually to sort of reinvent the way that they actually work. And that will be a constant theme, I think, coming through the 5 days, just listening to some of the great stories and learnings, good and bad, actually. We've also mixed in some interesting speakers, as you'd expect, both from the industry, but some proper headliners as well. So ones I'm really looking forward to seeing. We've got Nile Rodgers, talking about creativity, the creative process. Richard Curtis, talking about climate change. We've got June Sarpong, talking about the importance of diversity. We've also got commentators in there. We've got a few futurists lined up, and then we've got people like Scott Galloway, Mark Ritson. These are academics, professors of marketing who understand brands and salience and nuance and customer insight. That sort of stuff's going to be fascinating for me, because they'll be making sense and saying, well, actually, look, this is what it's going to look like going forward. This is how do you get the balance right between creative messaging and return on investment, for example.
So basically, yes, you've been impacted by COVID, but at least the discussion goes beyond that.
It does. Look, the takeout has to be, if for a great event, a content-led event, yes, you want to be entertained and informed, but the most important thing is well, what have I actually learned from it? What am I going to do differently when I go forward? In making sure that you're actually connecting with your customers in the right way. So those are going to be fascinating, because they will offer some pretty clear pointers as to things you really do need to start sort of sharpening up or doing differently to run a successful business.
Well, good luck with everything, and hopefully we will convene Tobacco Doc in 2021. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Cheers, James.